internationally, modern energy cooking services को electric cooking outlets योजनामा विद्युतीय प्रेसर कुकर उपलब्ध गराएको हो। जसका लागि लोकप्रिय विश्वविद्यालयको अवस्थामा आरटी डब्ल्युएसएससी र कर्मचारी नगरपालिकासँगको सहकार्यमा स्थानीय बोलाउन लिइरहेका अति विभिन्न 20 र अन्य परिवारका 20 घरको भान्सामा विद्युतीय प्रेसर कुकर उपलब्ध गराइयो।
इंटरनेशनल डिबेट 24 वर्षदेखि नेपालमा नवीकरणीय ऊर्जा सम्बन्धी परियोजनाहरू सञ्चालन र त्यस्ता परियोजनाहरूको रिसर्च गर्दै आएको छ र परियोजनाको सञ्चालन गरिरहेको छ।
मैले के देखेँ भने आफ्नै घरले युज गर्छ। स्थानीय सरकारले अझै राम्रो घरमा पुर्याउनको लागि यो कदम चालु गरेको एकदम राम्रो हुन्छ। उहाँबाट पनि त्यसमा
खाना पकाउँदाखेरि महिलाले दाउरा सुकुन गर्ने उल्टा पार्ने स्टोभको प्रयोग गर्ने जस्ता परम्परागत थिए जसमा कम अथवा धेरै रोगको थियो। तर विद्युतीय प्रेसर कुकरले भान्सामा प्रबन्धन गरिएको छ। विद्युतीय प्रेसर कुकरमा दाल, भात, तरकारी, मासु सबै थरी खाना पाउँछ। एलपिजी ग्यासको तुलनामा विद्युत महसुल पनि कम हुन्छ। प्रयोगकर्ताका लागि विद्युतीय प्रेसर कुकर चलाउन सजिलो र पाकेका खानेकुरा पनि मिठो लाग्छ। पानी अल्पलेर काम सेट गरी खाना तरकारी पकाएपछि घर घरमा केटाकेटी पढाउन पाउँदा समयको पनि बचत छ। सामान्य रूपमा एउटा विद्युतीय प्रेसर कुकरको प्रयोगले परिवारमा कति फरक पर्छ। कुकर चलाउन सजिलो, धुवा नहुने वातावरण बिग्री कम मात्रामा बिजुली खपत हुने र पकाएको खानेकुरा पनि मिठो। हलिउडको प्रेसर कुकरमा खाना पकाउँदा ठुलो परिवारलाई एकै पटक पाकेको खाना सक्दैन। खाना पकाउँदा चप्पल जुत्ताको प्रयोग सांस्कृतिक रूपमा गर्न पाइँदैन। तर अलिकति बिजुलीमा प्लग जोड्दा विद्युतीय झट्काको जोखिम पनि हुन सक्छ। त्यसरी बिग्रेर मर्मत विद्युतीय ऊर्जाको खपतमा प्रेरणा जगाउने दीर्घकालिक योजना बनाएका कारण विद्युतीय प्रेसर कुकरलाई प्रबन्धन गरिएको छ। साथै विद्युतीय प्रेसर कुकरले दीर्घकालिक रूपमा ऊर्जाको सङ्कटलाई पनि समाधान गर्ने विश्वास नगरपालिकामा छ।
नेपाली ऊर्जाको खपत बढाउनु र हाम्रो कम गर्ने विषयहरू सरकारको रूपमा उठाइरहेको विषय र अहिले हामी पूर्ण रूपमा सपोर्ट हुन नसकेको छैन। नेपाली यस्ता खालका विभिन्न व्यापक रूपमा प्रयोग गराइ ऊर्जा अनि प्रयोगकर्ता पनि कम गर्ने र प्रति व्यक्ति ऊर्जाको खपत 700 अझ महत्त्वपूर्ण विषय त लगभग 80% भन्दा बढी प्रयोगकर्ताले यसको लामो समयसम्म प्रयोग गर्न चाहनु भएको र यदि बिग्रियो भने बजारमा किनेर ल्याउन
देशको उत्पादन विविध प्रयोगकारी शब्दको वृद्धि गरी आर्थिक केन्द्रको खपत न्यून गर्ने नेपाल सरकारको नीति अनुसार विद्युतीय प्रेसर कुकरको प्रवर्धन वास्तवमै उपलब्धिमूलक छ। रोगहतका 50 करोडभरिमा मात्रै विद्युतीय इन्धनको प्रयोगबाट खाना पाकिरहे पनि दीर्घकालीन रूपमा विद्युतीय प्रेसर कुकर जस्ता सामग्रीको प्रयोगले इन्धन प्रयोगमा आत्मनिर्भर बनाउन सक्छ।
Hope you like the documentary. If you have any comments or suggestions, please let us know. Finally, I would like to thank you all for listening. I would like to acknowledge the support provided by MECS and other eco partners. Also, Sandeep ji is here, our partner from REW SSPC. I would like to thank you and your support from you and your organization. And thank you all.
Thank you very much, Govindji. Now we'd like to have a tea break for 15 minutes. Please come back, have a tea, and please be back before 11:45. Thank you.
So briefly about my organization, Irade is a Delhi-based think tank, work extensively on energy integration, energy access, climate change, agriculture, poverty and gender. It's coming later. We have extensive regional electricity integration work study going on since last 10 years under USAID. So it's South Asia regional integration for energy integration, and we have several benefits have come from those studies, like electricity trade between India, Nepal, and also between Bhutan, India, and several energy trade are in pipeline between the South Asian countries. WACN is a grassroots level organization working in Nepal, and they have more than 35,000 members with them. They were part of this study since very beginning. So I'll just start. So the study objective is to capture rural and urban community existing cooking practices, fuel mix, gender dynamics, and willingness to use EPC. So not long back, we all have seen that energy access. So the primary objective of any study would to be the energy access, but energy access is not the entire thing for energy transition. So with access, we also need the uses. So this study tried to understand that once they have the access, how uses changes, how the behavior changes, and slightly different from what had been done in the past. Policy maker nowadays are too much concerned about the evidence-based policy. And this entire exercise, all the partners, eco-partners, they try to bring out evidences from these studies that what happens when we give some electric device to the household, how they behave, how their transition changes, how their prior fuels usage changes, how the composition changes. This is what we try to understand through this. So to understand the EPC cooking experience of community members and to report findings. So this was the basic objective. This was funded by UK aid, and Loboro, a partner who provided this. It was a challenging study in the sense that when we got this study, or when this was launched, just few months, it came actually during the COVID pandemic in month of July 2020, and COVID had started since January. So the program stretched slightly longer than what it was expected during the timeline. So we have given intervention in two locations, that is Banepa and Timal. Timal rural municipality and Banepa urban municipality. We gave a Philips electric pressure cooker appliance to 40 households in the peri-urban urban area of Banepa and 40 households in the rural area of Timal. So the idea was to record several things like time of cooking, energy, how much they are using. Whether it is firewood, whether it is LPG, whether it is electricity. So first and foremost, what we did, we distributed a wall clock to the participants so that they can record the time correctly. And then we distributed electric pressure cooker with sub-meter to record the electricity consumption on a daily basis. We recorded the firewood uses consumption on a weekly basis, as well as the LPG consumption on a weekly basis. So we do not have like data per dish electricity consumption or per dish LPG or firewood consumption. But on an average, we can say that what is the output. This has been discussed by several of our earlier presenters, that this is the same. We had a baseline phase where we took cooking diary before distributing this EPC. We did a baseline analysis, data collection for 3 weeks. Then we distributed the EPC and gave a 2-week break, adaptation break, so that they can learn using that. Then we started our transition phase data collection for 3 weeks. Then after that, we did a monitoring phase for 6 weeks, where we only collected data on cooking with EPC. And then in the end, we have this end line data collection for 3 weeks, which followed by a exit interview. So what we found, roughly, it has been narrated by the earlier presenters. So initially in phase 1, which is the baseline phase, there was no EPC with them, though there were other electric devices like induction and all. 78.5% heating events in the rural area were done using LPG, 14.7% heating events using firewood, and rest using the other devices. Well, in phase 2, when we, that is the transition phase, this LPG share in total heating event declined to 62.4%, and firewood share declined to 7.5%, and EPC share increased to 27.6% in the rural area, which further increased to 38.8% in the 4th phase, that is the final phase, end line phase. Similarly, in the urban area, if you see the LPG accounted for higher percentage of heating event compared to the rural area, it was 88.9%, which declined to 55.7% in the end line phase, whereas the use of EPC for the heating events increased from 0 to 32.5%. So this is there is an increasing transition, and the use, you can see in all the phases, there is a slight increase in the use of EPC for heating events. Further, what we found that the use of LPG and firewood compared to phase 1 had declined in phase 4 in both the location, rural and urban. The major cooking item in Nepalese kitchen is rice, pulses, vegetables, beans, and they together account for nearly 57%. Boiling water and making tea is another, they account for another 12%. In phase 4, we found that 93.5% of rice were cooked using EPC jointly in rural and urban area, which is a major leap forward. 17% of cooking vegetables were done using EPC in the final phase. 34.7% events of cooking pulses were done using EPC. 30.8% events of cooking beans were done on EPC. So what we find that EPC is quite a suitable device, giving the socio-economic and cooking habits in the Nepalese kitchen, and its uptake had increased in during the this data collection period. What happened to the energy and cost? So on the first figure shows that there has been decline in the use of total energy consumption for cooking in terms that this was calculated using megajoule. So and there was also a reduction in cost of cooking in all the 3 phases, both in rural and urban area. Now firewood is a very different fuel, where it is mainly collected. Where we visited, it was mainly collected. So there is no monetary value directly associated with it, but definitely there is a woman drudgery, children drudgery, and there is an opportunity cost which is associated with cooking with firewood, collecting firewood, processing firewood, which in absence of any market value or the monetary value of firewood, we have calculated the cost only for the LPG and the EPC. What we find that in the rural area, the cost of cooking declined by nearly 50% after the introduction of EPC in phase 4. And in the urban area, it declined by nearly 35%. Now, this figure has been shown by past. So we just compared the per capita and per dish energy consumption. We find that compared to LPG, EPC is quite cheaper per capita in terms of per capita also, and in terms of per dish cooking energy. Now, this is very interesting from the supply side of electricity. We plotted the heating events in a 24-hour format, and we find that the peak period is 6 to 9 a.m. in the morning, and the peak period in evening is 5 to 8. So what we did, we had the data for all the time of cooking for all the dishes cooked in the cooking diary, mentioned in the cooking diary, and we just plotted, and it comes so beautiful that if the supply, quality of supply as well as like reliability both, because reliability is, you can have earlier Winrock had shown that there can be a reliable electricity supply, but quality may be poor, where the voltage is, let's say 190, 200 and 200 volts, something like that, not 240. So we need a reliable and quality electric supply from 6 to 9 in the morning and from 5 to 8 in the evening, so that in Nepal kitchen, electric cooking uptake increases. It is important from the policy perspective because Nepal has a rich hydro potential. It's a local resource. Electricity is a local resource. There are several hydroelectricity power generation plants are in pipeline, and it will promotion of electricity will also save the scarce foreign exchange reserve, which they spend on importing this LPG and all. Yes. So during the exit interview, 80% of the participants revealed that it was very easy to learn cooking on EPC. Older participants, they felt slight difficulty in learning using cooking with EPC, but with the help of our enumerators and their neighbors, like cross learning from their neighbors, they were able to learn to cook on EPC. Now, a general perception which evolves that food cook on EPC is very tasty, ramro cha, mitho cha. Using a separator, yes. One or two of our participants, this normally cooking rice and pulses rice takes somewhere around 24-25 minutes and pulses takes another 30 minutes. So few of our participants, they tried to use a separator and cook rice and pulses together, which reduced the timing to 29 minutes. This was an innovative approach which our participants, some of our participants used. And then a recommendation comes that can we have a separator like we used to have on this LPG pressure cooker? So that recommendation emerges from this. Voltage fluctuation was reported, very well documented by Winrock. I appreciate their effort. Repairing of EPC is a challenge. During our intervention period and the data record period, 2 devices breakdown were reported. It took nearly 4 to 5 days to get the repairing done. In absence of repairing center in the nearby, let's say Banepa and in Timal, it needs to be transported to Kathmandu, into the service center. So that's a challenge. That's a challenge because the transportation is involved, an entire day for coming, giving it to Kathmandu service center, going back again, another day you have to come and collect it. This is a challenge. This is a big challenge for the uptake. So now Srijna Paudalji and her team, they were the one who implemented this, and we were from the research finding side. So she will explain her experience, team experience.
आजको यो कार्यक्रमको अध्यक्षता गरिराख्नुभएका योजना आयोगका सदस्यज्यू र उपस्थित सम्पूर्ण महानुभावहरूलाई मनारी चेतना केन्द्र नेपालको तर्फबाट हामीले समुदायमा काम गर्दा भोग्नु परेका समस्या र हामीले प्राप्त गरेका केही उपलब्धिहरू सुनाउन गइरहेको छु र यसका यो मौका दिनुभएकोमा म आशुतोष सरलाई धेरै धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु. And I would like to present my points on both English and Nepali language so that some of my colleagues from the community can also understand what I am explaining. So in the community, what we experienced was there was the increase in health benefits of the community members. Like EPC is very environmental friendly, which we also learned from the previous presentations. And because there is no smoke while cooking, like in firewood, which result reducing health hazards of especially women who are mostly involved in cooking activities. जस्तो महिलाहरूले धेरै जसो दाउरामा चाहिँ पकाइराख्नु पर्ने अवस्था नेपाली ग्रामीण परिवेशमा थियो र त्यसलाई चाहिँ प्रतिस्थापन गर्नका लागि EPC अत्यन्त स्वास्थ्यवर्धक रूपमा प्रस्तुत भएको थियो र त्यो समयमा धेरै जसो स्वास्थ्य समस्याहरू जुन दाउरा पकाउँदाखेरि भोग्नु परेको थियो दिदीबहिनीहरूले त्यो चाहिँ कम गर्नलाई धेरै नै सहयोग पुगेको हामीले अनुभव गरेका थियौं. त्यसपछि financial benefits. Adoption of EPC reduced the burning of firewood and use of LPG. Cooking with EPC cost nearly 35 to 15% cheaper than cooking with LPG stove. जस्तो समुदायमा हामीले के पनि अनुभव गर्यौं भन्दाखेरि जुन हामीले दाउरा र अझ भनौं धेरै जसो चाहिँ हामीले दाउरा त सजिलै रूपमा प्राप्त गर्थ्यौं तर एलपीजी चाहिँ हामीले किनेर ल्याउनु पर्थ्यो त्यसको तुलनामा ईपीसी मा पकाउँदाखेरि हामीले जुन खर्च गर्नु पर्थ्यो ऊर्जाको लागि त्यसमा चाहिँ 35 देखि 50% चाहिँ कमी आएको हामीले अनुभव गर्यौं र त्यो सँगसँगै ढुवानीको समस्या जस्तो तेमाल जस्तो ठाउँ जहाँ हामीले चाहिँ तेमाल र बनेपामा बेस भएर काम गरेको थियौं र तेमालमा ढुवानीको लागि अत्यन्त समस्या थियो र त्यसको लागि एक्स्ट्रा उहाँहरूले पनि तिरिराख्नु पर्ने अवस्थामा ईपीसीले चाहिँ त्यसलाई पनि कम गर्नलाई ठूलो महत्त्वपूर्ण योगदान दिएको थियो. We could also save money spent while transporting cylinder from market to our houses. त्योदेखि बाहेक हामीले स्वास्थ्य र आर्थिक रूप सँगसँगै we could proper utilize the time. जस्तो अघि पनि यहाँहरूले विनरकको प्रेजेन्टेसन र त्यो भिडियो र त्यो भन्दा अगाडिका प्रस्तुतिमा पनि समयको बचत भएको कुराहरू थाहा पाइसक्नु भएको छ. त्यसरी नै अतिरिक्त कामहरू खाना पकाउने सँगसँगै बच्चाहरूको हेरचाह गर्ने, उहाँहरूको होमवर्कमा सपोर्ट गर्ने, घरको सरसफाई गर्ने, लुगा धुन जाने अथवा एकछिन बत्ती काटेर बस्ने हैन त्यस्तो कामहरू गर्नको लागि चाहिँ महिलाहरूलाई समय मिलेको थियो. On the one hand, we were able to carry out other activities like cleaning our houses, taking care of our children and their study, do other household chores while food is being cooked. On the other hand, cleaning the EPC pot was also it was less time consuming. किनभनेदेखि जस्तो हामीले चाहिँ खाना पकाउँदाखेरि जुन भित्र भाँडो प्रयोग हुन्थ्यो इपिसीमा त्यो चाहिँ असाध्यै सजिलैसँग माझ्न पनि सजिलो थियो र दाउरामा चाहिँ हात कालो हुने, समय धेरै लाग्ने, ग्यासमा पनि सकिँदै जाँदा कालो हुने र त्यो धुँदाखेरिको जुन खाली समय मात्रै होइन कि इन्धनको पानीको पनि बढी खपतहरू हुने जुन समस्याहरू थियो त्यसलाई पनि कम गर्नको लागि चाहिँ यो एकदमै सहयोगी भएको थियो. And after that we were also able to build a good relationship inside our house and better harmony between the community members, a neighborhood. त्यसमा चाहिँ त्यो गर्नको लागि सफल भएको थियो. Because food cooked on EPC tastes good. खाना चाहिँ एकदम मिठो हुन्थ्यो. अझ हाम्रो रिजल्टमा त हामीले 100% खाना मिठो हुन्छ भन्ने अनुभव चाहिँ हामीले हाम्रो समुदायमा हामीले पायौं र त्यसपछि त्यसले गर्दाखेरि they were able to bring a smile on the face of family members र सबैजना घरको परिवारको व्यक्तिहरू चाहिँ खुसी हुनुहुन्थ्यो र घरभित्र नै एउटा सुमधुर सम्बन्ध पनि कायम गर्नको लागि यो सहयोगी भएको थियो. भने हामीले काम गरिरहेको समुदाय तेमाल भनेको विशेष गरेर अलिकति भौगोलिक रूपले पनि अलि अप्ठ्यारो ठाउँमा र पढे लेखेको मान्छेहरू कम, बुढाबुढीहरू घरमा रहिराख्ने अवस्था भएको कारणले गर्दाखेरि एउटा कुनै पनि घरमा भएको पढे लेखेको सानो भाइ हुन सक्छ अथवा घरका छोरा नाति नातिना हुन सक्छ, उनीहरूको सहयोगमा पनि पकाउनको लागि चाहिँ एकदमै सहयोग भएको थियो. र अर्को कुरा भनेको जस्तो महिलाले मात्रै खाना पकाउनु पर्छ भन्ने एउटा जुन सोचाइ थियो त्यसलाई पनि परिवर्तन गर्न सफल भएको थियो. Because even the male members from the family were also supporting their female members. So त्यसले गर्दाखेरि पनि एउटा परिवारभित्र पनि एउटा मेलमिलापको वातावरण चाहिँ सृजना भएको थियो. And there was no problem of food burning due to automatic switch off option once the food gets cooked, and no human interventions like regular stirring of food. त्यो चाहिँ थियो किन भन्दाखेरि हामीले चाहिँ अप्सन चाहिँ त्यस्तो थियो कि स्विच अफ आफै हुन्थ्यो जसले गर्दाखेरि खाना डढ्यो होला ला भन्ने त्यो समस्या पनि हुन्थेन भने कुरेर चलाइराख्नु पर्ने झन्झट पनि त्यसमा थिएन. अनि अर्को भनेको चाहिँ जस्तो हामीले जुन अघि भर्खर पनि देखिसक्यौं जुन सेपरेटरको प्रयोग गरेर गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ अत्यन्त सजिलो भएको र यसले झन् इन्धनलाई पनि खपतलाई पनि कम गरेको पनि हामीले अनुभव गर्यौं. र एउटै भाँडोबाट सबैभन्दा चाहिँ हाम्रो समुदायमा त ईपीसी लाई के भन्नुहुन्थ्यो भन्दा जादुको भाँडा भन्नुहुन्थ्यो किनभने राइस कुकर जस्तो देखिन्छ. इट लुक्स लाइक राइस कुकर बट यु क्यान कुक भेराइटी अफ डिसेस इन द सेम इक्विपमेन्ट. त्यसकारण चाहिँ यो जादुको भाँडा रहेछ भन्ने अनुभव पनि भएको भएर यो चाहिँ एउटै भाँडामा धेरै खानेकुरा पाक्ने अत्यन्त राम्रो र वातावरण मैत्री सँगसँगै समुदाय मैत्री पनि एउटा एउटा चाहिँ भाँडो हो भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ हामीले अनुभव गर्यौँ। तर यति भनिराख्दाखेरि खालि सुखद अनुभूति मात्रै पनि हामीले गरेनौँ, केही यसका नराम्रो पक्ष अथवा समुदायमा हामीले भोग्नु परेका समस्याहरू पनि छन्। जस्तो समस्याको रूपमा सबैभन्दा पहिला त कोभिड नै आफै थियो। हामीले समयमा काम गर्न सकिरहेको थिएनौँ। घर घरमा गएर जुन सिकाउने कामहरू गर्नु पर्थ्यो, कतिपय अवस्थामा घरमा जाँदाखेरि पनि रेस्ट्रिक्सन, जान नसक्ने अवस्थाहरू पनि थियो। अझ समुदायकै व्यक्तिहरू पनि जान नसक्ने अवस्था भएको भएर त्यस्तो कुराहरू थियो। र हामीले ठुलो समूहमा चाहिँ जस्तो सरकारले पनि कतिपय अवस्थामा चाहिँ तिमीहरूले भिडभाड नगर, 5 जना मात्रै बस, ग्यादरिङ नगर भन्ने रेस्ट्रिक्सन लागेको कारणले चाहिँ हामीले त्यो सिक्ने र सिकाउने कुराहरूमा पनि अलिकति प्रभाव परेको थियो। कोभिड एन्ड इट्स रेस्ट्रिक्सन बिकज इनुमरेटर्स वेयर अल्सो रेस्ट्रिक्टेड टु इन्टर सम अफ द हाउसेस टु कलेक्ट द इन्फर्मेसन्स। वी कुड नट डु सर्टेन एक्टिभिटिज टाइमली एन्ड अर्गनाइज एन्ड पार्टिसिपेट्स इन इभेन्ट इन लार्ज ग्रुप्स, त्यो भएको थियो। And it was itself a big challenge to help community adopt EPC, किनभने EPC आफैमा नयाँ भाँडो थियो। अघि हामीले हाम्रो वैकल्पिक ऊर्जाबाट आउने सरले पनि मैले भनेको सुनिरहेको थिएँ, उहाँ आफैले पनि EPC लाई त्यति धेरै फोकस गरिराख्नु भएको थिएन। त्यसकारण चाहिँ जस्तो EPC जस्तो भाँडा इभन हाम्रो लागि पनि नयाँ थियो। र त्यो कस्तो परिवेशमा भने धेरै वर्षदेखि दाउरामा पकाइरहेको, ग्यासको बानी परिरहेको व्यक्तिहरूलाई तुरुन्तै EPCमा चाहिँ तपाईँहरू स्विच हुनुहोस् भन्न चाहिँ अत्यन्त गाह्रो भएको थियो। अनि अर्को कुरा भनेको जस्तो हाम्रो गाउँघरमा फायरवुड चाहिँ एकदमै सजिलै भनौँ न, खोज्न जाने झन्झट भए पनि सस्तोमा पाइने बजार एरियामा र गाउँघरमा त किन्नै नपर्ने एउटा ऊर्जाको रूपमा पनि छ। र त्यसलाई प्रतिस्थापन गर्नु पनि एउटा आफैमा चुनौती थियो। भने हामीले अहिलेसम्म पनि के मान्नमा तयार छैनौँ भने विद्युत भनेको चाहिँ हाम्रो प्राइमेरी एनर्जी हो है, यो चाहिँ हाम्रो प्राथमिकताको हो, पहिलो एनर्जी चाहिँ विद्युत हुनुपर्छ भन्ने कुरा अझै समुदायलाई सिकाउन चाहिँ गाह्रो अवस्था छ। So it was itself a big challenge to help community adopt EPC and change their behavior because people were habituated with traditional firewood stoves and LPG. And in most of the cases, firewood was easily available and free of cost. And most of the households takes electricity as a secondary device of cooking. Okay, so it's challenging to involve new people in our community in adopting the e-cooking with EPC because the price of EPC is expensive and unaffordable by the poor and middle class household. यो चाहिँ EPC प्रयोगमा एकदमै सबैजनाले रुचाए पनि महँगो भएको कारणले चाहिँ अलिकति नाक खुम्चाउने अवस्था चाहिँ रहेको थियो. Challenging in convincing and teaching older and illiterate people in adoption of EPC because EPC itself was a new device for them and could not read the user manual written in the English language. जस्तो हामीले चाहिँ त्यो जुन म्यानुअलमा अङ्ग्रेजीमा लेखिएको कारणले चाहिँ हाम्रो समुदायमा भएको दिदीबहिनीहरूलाई चाहिँ कुन अप्सन थिच्ने रहेछ भनेर अलिकति वाल्ल टल्न पर्ने अवस्था चाहिँ भएको थियो. Repairing EPC locally was another challenge because there were no technician and service center available locally. Therefore, for repairing, we need to carry EPC to Kathmandu. अघि नै पनि हामीले थाहा पाइसकेका छौँ अघिल्ला प्रस्तुतिहरूमा. It was difficult to fully assure the household that they can cook with electricity either because of power cut or low electricity voltage supply. Therefore, power interventions forced to switch to other cooking appliances stuff. जस्तो कुनै अवस्थामा चाहिँ भोल्टेज अप डाउन हुँदाखेरि EPCमा खाना पाक्यो है भनेर खाना पस्किने अवस्थामा चाहिँ काँचै रहिरहेको अवस्था पनि थियो. त्यसकारण भोल्टेज पनि एउटा समस्याको रूपमा रहेको थियो. अनि simultaneous cooking is not possible with a single EPC. त्यो चाहिँ हुन सक्दैन. एउटा EPC मात्रै घरमा भएर चाहिँ त्यो घर परिवारमा चाहिँ खाना राम्रो चाँडै चाहिँ पाक्न सक्दैन भन्ने पनि हाम्रो अनुभव रह्यो. र अरु विभिन्न परिकारहरू, the local dishes we could not cook in EPC. EPC has some limitations like cooking a few local dishes, boiling milk and deep frying. So with this, I would like to end up my points, and if Ashutosh sir has something to add.
So I will just summarize the recommendations. So I'll just summarize the recommendation. As you all are aware, like whoever have worked in this project, that electric pressure cooker is an expensive device, and also it relies on electricity. So until unless we have 24/7 reliability of quality electricity, reliable supply of reliable quality electricity, stacking will continue to happen as so the representative from AAPC were also saying that the idea is not to completely remove the firewood and the LPG, but slow transition. So we have seen 38% transition in the rural area and 33% in the urban area, which is quite commendable. And it also reflects that now 30% of LPG can be substituted for locally available hydroelectricity, right? Developing innovative financing solutions. So we hope that consumer financing organizations and the credit saving societies, cooperatives, they will come with some financing solution like in a EMI based, like equated monthly installment or low interest rate, subsidized interest rate, to provide these electric cooking devices like EPC to their community members and the other. Expansion distributor retailer store network, that is very important. We have all highlighted, if we want electric cooking to promoted in Nepal in every corner, it is important that we not only have the distribution network, but we also need to have the service network there. Developing strategies for promoting e-cooking and campaign for consumer awareness, which is very important. This has been emphasized. Now, a government has a limited amount of resources which can be given as a subsidy to the people. It is very important to identify the real needy so that the targeted subsidy reach the real needy. The identification has always been a challenge in a welfare economy, in a welfare state, but it is important to identify who needs the subsidy so that the limited resource available with the government can be transferred to the real needy for promoting e-cooking in Nepal. So thank you.
Thank you, Astos ji and Srijana ji. Now I'd like to request Biraj to come here and present his summary.
Thank you, Mohandas sir. Respected Chair of the sessions, Honorable Member, National Planning Commission, respected Chairperson, Mahankal Rural Municipality, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the presentation of this MECS Eco study. In this study, we are exploring the acceptability and suitability of electric pressure cookers in the on-grid site in South Lalitpur and in micro hydropower off-grid site. So we are four different organizations: People, Energy, Environment and Development Association (PEDA), mostly engaged in the community engagement, data analysis. University of Bristol, UK, so data analysis and technical backstopping. Kathmandu Alternative Power and Energy Group, a private company, supporting data collection of micro hydro and MHP data analysis. And Access to Energy Institute, Germany, supporting smart energy meter, data analysis from smart energy meters and visualization. So our research was actually built on our previous research work. We did two research in one was in Rukum in 29 kilowatt micro hydro project, and another was in Solukhumbu 100 kilowatt site, again for the induction cook stoves. So induction cook stoves normally behaves like the traditional biomass stoves because it requires continuously same amount of electricity. So we wanted to test what happens when we introduce electric pressure cooker, which is something new uh, uh, for the uh, weak grid and off-grid areas. So this was like quite new technology when we started writing this proposal back in 2020, beginning of the 2020. So we had 4 major objectives. So understanding the state of the Nepali EPC market. So we wanted to understand what kind of electric pressure cookers are available in the market, and the cost and the functioning of those electric pressure cooker. And also we wanted to develop the uh, use of electric pressure cookers in the Nepalese rural households, and do this by implementing a pilot project, and also do the dissemination work. For the field study, we explored EPCs so in the 2 sites, as I mentioned earlier. So one was in Mahankal Rural Municipality, which is around 60 kilometers south of Kathmandu. So we had 30 households spread across 6 wards of Mahankal Rural Municipality. And also later on, we introduced around 80 EPCs in the same municipality. And so another site our is like Tirveni Solukula microhydro project, 100 kilowatt microhydro site, located in like around 300 kilometer from Kathmandu, Solukhumbu district, powered by 100 kilowatt capacity. So in the methodology, most of the things has been said already, but still, so we did at first market assessment. So we try to collect all the EPCs available in the Nepalese market. And then so all the EPCs we bring back to the small laboratory we have developed in our office, in PDA's office in Buddhanagar. So we did some assessment. So we did visual inspection, water boiling test, maximum temperature test, control cooking test. And so these all the tests gave us clear understanding of the EPC, and also supported us to choose which EPC is best for us to bring back to the community. So which I will tell a little bit more later. And then we went to the field and collected data by using different tools and did the data analysis. So in the first stage, as I mentioned earlier, so we had the market assessment. So during July and August 2020, we had like we went through the Daraz, so online platform like Daraz, and also visited several vendors and collected all the EPCs available in the market. But so before buying all the EPCs, we were like a little bit concerned with the price as well. That's why we purchased those EPCs which were available less than 12,000 rupees at that time in the market. So there were like few EPCs which were expensive, 16,000, 20,000 rupees, but then we did not include those EPCs in our research project. So these are the few names. So actually all the names we collected, the brand, Electron, Philips, Baltra. So in the Philips also we purchased only one unit, so that was around 12,000 rupees at that time. And Baltra, Kenwood, and Gipas brands that were available. So these were like 6,000 to 12,000 rupees. So then we developed like a set of 50 questions to do the visual inspection. Then we went through, so my colleagues are here, so we 3-4 people went through all the guidelines. We prepared like around 50 questions and we marked them. So we scored them, and based on that, so we could finalize only 5 EPCs. One EPC was not performing that best, so that's why we discarded for the second round of investigation. So only 5 EPCs we did that. And then we did the water boiling test. In the water boiling test, we adopted mostly, so this is the picture that we did the water boiling test. So we adopted the guidelines developed by Clean Cooking Alliance. So CCA guidelines was mostly for the biomass cook stove, but we adapted that for the electric stoves. And then we did hot start test, and also cold start test. And also we did the 180 volt and 220 volt, because so as I mentioned earlier, we wanted to go to the sites where either power is limited in microhydro site or power is not so quality. So most of the times we grid areas. So that's why we did testing on 180 volt and 220 volt. So again, since some of the food we cook, we do the deep frying. That's why we also had this maximum temperature test. So actually we wanted to understand if the EPC can do the deep frying or not. So that test also we did. So these are, and then we did the control cooking test. In the control cooking test, we had, we did for the rice and dal and chicken gravy. We didn't do the vegetable because vegetable is quite seasonal, and also the taste of cooking is quite personal. So someone likes like raw cooked, someone likes like highly cooked, and so that's why we didn't took vegetable as a research things. So in the CCT, we also did the, again, so because we wanted to go to the community, we wanted to tell people about the time and cost. So that's why we also did the LPG coupled with regular 2 burner stoves, traditional wood stoves, induction cooktop, infrared cooktop, and electric pressure cooker. The recipe for the CCT we developed based on our 2 earlier findings. For example, we took like 710 grams of rice for the CCT. That was the finding from our previous study. So for the family of 5, so people in the Rukum and people in the Solukhumbu, they used on an average 710 grams of rice for a family of 5. So since the national average is 5, that's why we did this for the 5. And the water, selection of water also, we again choose the same data. From our research, the urban branded EPC was the best one. So among all the 6, so which had like a good efficiency around 90% efficiency when we do the hot start, and 86% efficiency when we do the cold start. And also it had more functions and warranties and all those things. That's why we choose urban branded EPCs for our field intervention. So then we went to the field. So we had like pre-selected selection criteria developed for the household selection, enumerator selection, and we provided training. Again, so because we were also working in the micro hydro area, the power supply is quite limited. That's why also we did the analysis of the transformers that can accommodate the maximum number of electric pressure cookers. So for example, so one transformer can do the 10, 15 EPCs, or another can do 5 EPCs. Based on that, also we choose so maximum number of households we want to go in particular catchment area of a transformer. So then we also use this Campbell scientific data loggers in the micro hydro side, so that we understand the regular supply and demand side of a micro hydropower. And also we use the smart household energy meter to collect the data in the cloud. As I said, like manufactured, designed by A2EI, they supplied us free of cost. So, and our phase was like, we did all the phases, baseline, transition, monitoring, and inline. So Pooja ma'am has already mentioned about the phases. We did everything for 15 days. Apart from that, we also did the light survey. So that means like contacting people in between and asking them about their experience. So these are some of the pictures from the field. Yes, and apart from that, we also did some other experiments. So because the EPC has only one cooking pot, and so we were in thinking that it might hinder the opportunity of cooking for several dishes for the households. That's why 5 households we distributed 2 EPCs, so that we can learn so what happens when we distribute 2 EPCs. And also another 5 households we give like extra 5 cooking pot, and also all the households we give hot case so that they can store the food. So then, so based on all this implementation, we also did open the marketplace demand based, like people can come and ask us if they want to use EPC. And so those things like 80 EPCs we did in Mahankal Rural Municipality, and 20 EPCs we did in micro hydro community. So these are some of the some of the graphs like people choose between baseline phase, transition phase and end-line phase. So at the end, there was not much more changes in the use of different types of DCS. So this is again from finding from the on-grid side. So these are the similar reports like earlier presentation. That's why I don't repeat this much more. So this is types of stoves used in each phase was also evaluated. In Solukhumbu, there was a distinct reduction in the use of firewood for cooking in the different phases of the project with the increased use of the EPC. It was also found that there was a small increase in the use of LPG during the project period. However, in South Lalitpur, the firewood is only reduced slightly with the introduction of EPCs. However, there was about 20% reduction in the use of LPG stove. So this is some maths we did for the use of EPC. In general, like people used around twice this EPC, mostly for the rice cooking, as the presenter from the earlier presentation mentioned. And the cost side, so this information is from the field. Since we didn't have the wood data collected from the on-grid side, that's why we could not calculate here. But when we check the information, the households can save like 500 rupees in the LPG expenses. Whereas in the off-grid side, people could save around 6,000 rupees, and which is already the price of the EPC. So the cost we calculated is based on the, for the fuel wood. So the number of people they hire during the fuel wood collection when the community forestry is open once or twice in a year, and also LPG data. So that is the information. So this is the cost we calculated from the CCT in the lab work. So definitely we used 1 kilowatt electricity for infrared, for induction, and EPC was like 960 watt. And then, so in the wood stove, in the traditional wood stove and LPG, we opened full, so for the regular things. And from that, so EPC was the longest to cook, but it was the cheapest to cook in terms of price. So in our calculation, so EPC was almost 50% cheaper than the LPG. And also it was like around 40% cheaper than induction and infrared. But in the today's price, so EPC is like more, so cooking with LPG is much more expensive. It's around 15 rupees 40 paise in today's price, but it was calculated in November 2020, but we used the previous price for this calculation. So this is a quick graph, like the red line indicating the power generation and green line, blue line indicating the demand. So this was the case of the microhydro site. So before we intervened, so we made a assumption that so we are going to implement 30 EPCs, and the power rating of one EPC is 960 watt. That's why if we implement 30 EPCs, meaning that around 29 kilowatt extra load will bring to the off-grid areas. So that might be difficult. So at the beginning, but we intervened that. But so look at this graph. When we did the 6 months analysis, then we found that the maximum demand from the EPC was around 6 to 7 kilowatt in off-grid side in the peak hours. And sometimes it reached up to 10 kilowatt in the on-grid side, but it was like around 6 to 7 kilowatt total demand increase. So this might be because of the special characteristics of the EPC, because if you see the e-cookbook in front of you, in the page number 33, there is a chart. It shows that how EPC demands 960 watt for the first 5 to 7 minutes, and then it goes off. And when there is like less pressure inside, then again it comes in. That's why the EPC don't need electricity all the time. That's the good point of the EPC. That's why we can immediately promote this kind of technology in the weak grid and off-grid areas. So that's the chart it shows. And we had like a little bit problem with the voltage. So this chart is the voltage, average voltage. So the line diagram is like red is the on-grid and green is the off-grid side. So in the Mahankali area, most of the times voltage is below 200 volt, and it could go up to 180 volt sometime. And in the microhydro area, sometime it could go up to 140 volt, meaning that so still people can cook, but the time can be very high when there is a low voltage in the system. So this is kind of graphs like green with the demand uh, and the orange with the supply. So this is like from the microhydro when we supplied 50 EPCs in 100 kilowatt system, still the demand, maximum demand was around 72 kilowatt, meaning that so EPC can be implemented in microhydro and in weak grid very immediately. So we also did some exit survey. So it's like 1-day survey, and people said that so the demonstration of cooking. So we did the demonstration in the beginning in the cluster basis, also in the household basis. That was quite helpful. And also they find the multitasking benefit of the EPC, as Asutosh already mentioned, like people can just keep cooking and go around and then come back and take the hot food anytime. And so they find EPC time consuming, as I said, so EPC takes time. So for example, if you want to cook rice for a family of 5, you might think of 25 to 30 minutes to cook a rice. Whereas if you do the same thing in the LPG, then you might spend around 14-15 minutes. But the benefits are very much, so you need to think of the time so that way. But people are using now, and they said like they will continue using the EPCs. So because like rice is the staple food, and so there are people who don't like cooking rice in the rice cooker. And then we just asked people if they find the taste of cooking in EPC great. So out of 45 people, 44 find it is very great. And then so around 73% like very much, and 10% liked average. So I'm about ending my presentation. Sorry for taking a long time. So our major takeaways from our research is the pilot study showed that the participants accepted the EPC well with slight modification in their diet. So when people start using this, they might do some behavioral change. The study showed the use of EPC was, and so the EPC was used mostly around twice in a day on an average. But so some of the people, they cooked like 80% food in EPC, and also some of the people, they cooked intermittently. There was the cases. So from our study, we found that so flat 50% of the fuel wood reduction after cooking in the EPC, even like they cook 2 food in a day, the fuel wood saving was like 55%. Also, we showed that so that 2 cooking in a day was like half kilowatt hour, as Asutosh also mentioned earlier. And so the great thing is like one induction, I should not say induction, one hot plate is equal to 3 EPCs in terms of energy consumption. So demand in terms of, that's why if we can promote like 10 induction stoves in any microhydro community, then so immediately we can go for the 30 microhydros. So these are the cases from our previous study, but due to limited time, maybe I can share later those things. So we had some limitations during this research. One was the COVID, and so that happened to everyone. And so still after the subsidized price, also there were people who were interested to participate in our research but could not pay the upfront cost. For your information, we had like around 25% subsidy, no, 75% subsidy who were involved in the intensive study, and 50% subsidy in the marketplace. And so there was like big challenges in us is like, we had like 140 EPCs distributed in on-grid and off-grid areas. It was 160, but only one brand was And out of that, around 27 EPCs were broken during the research period, 6 months, meaning that around 20% of our EPCs were broken. Because so the reason was different. So as Pooja ma'am said, some of them were because of the cockroaches or high low voltage quality of electricity, or the users behavior or something like that. But there was like 20% EPCs were broken, meaning like great threat. So for our research, we had like, as Madhusudan sir said, in the morning, we had like 4 or 5 EPC ready in our office. And whenever there is a broken EPC, then we immediately ship to the community. That's how we did it. But it's not a sustainable way of doing. So that's why that was also quite challenging. And another so challenging, as I said, like all the lab study we didn't cover the durability test, because durability test needs lots of different things. We could not do that. So that was also one of the limitation we had for this project. So yeah, so as all said, like we had the similar recommendations, so some sort of financing mechanism for the upfront cost. So the main important part is the repair and maintenance. So that's the most important part, because we did our induction stoves back in 2019, and some of the people's whose induction stoves are still working, they are still cooking in the electricity. So some of the people who are broken, so some of them are sending to us, and some of them are not. So they are not cooking. They went back to the traditional cooking method. So that's why it's very much necessary that we focus. So since we are talking about 5.7 million Nepalese households who will sometime start the electric cooking, so it's a huge scale for Nepal. So we believe like the repair and maintenance is quite important. Some of the organizations have started like Delhi sir, but so that's the individual basis. We think like institutionalization of repair and maintenance is quite important, and also we see like knowledge and dissemination and everything is quite important. So these are the some of the people's verdicts. Just give me 1 minute, sir. Sorry for taking a long time. So some of the people, like elderly people, find quite relaxed cooking in EPCs. And some of the people said, as I said, like they could not afford the EPCs. And for some people, so they initially thought like they might pay much more money for the electricity bill, but they didn't realize when they actually paid it. Yeah, so having said that, I again would like to acknowledge the mixed, technical and also financial support, and the support provided by all the partners, Practilection, Irade, Windruck during the monthly call, and also all these peoples here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Biraj. Now I'd like to invite Richard Schiff from MECS to present the summary of his global experiences.
Richard, yeah. And the second. Leave it as it. So that can be. I want to move slide. Good morning, everyone. My name's Richard Seif. I work for MECS as the Eco Research Coordinator and also the MECS Link Researcher for Nepal. So this morning, we've heard about the tremendous evidence base that has been generated for electric cooking in Nepal from the MECS Eco Research projects and also the MECS activities in Nepal. And what I'd like to do in this short presentation is to give an overview of the global progress and achievements of the MECS program after 3.5 years. Progress which has partly been informed by the work in Nepal, and progress which can also help inform next steps in the transition to modern energy cooking services here in Nepal. So as mentioned before, MECS is a 5-year program funded by UK aid, which aims to rapidly accelerate the transition from biomass to clean cooking on a global scale. By integrating modern energy cooking services into energy planning, MECS hopes to leverage investment in renewable energy, particularly in electricity access, to address the clean cooking challenge. The intended outcomes of the program are a market-ready range of technology and business innovations for modern energy cooking services, MECS principles adopted into SDG 7.1, and countries to incorporate modern energy cooking services in energy policies and planning. So MECS has 15 priority countries, but we engage with far more. So to achieve these intended outcomes, the MECS program focuses on 5 core research outputs. 1, the factors driving transitions to modern energy cooking services, including in humanitarian and institutional settings. Secondly, the technology and business innovations to increase access to MECS, including the challenge funds that we've been hearing about today. Thirdly, the global tracking of modern energy cooking. Fourthly, scaling up modern energy cooking services, which is the key priority for the remainder of the MECS program. And lastly, changing the narrative on cooking to have MECS incorporated into wider energy access policy and programming. So globally, what has been the progress towards these outputs and intended outcomes of MECS? So this presentation can't cover the whole breadth of the MECS program, but the following is intended to highlight some of the key achievements, many of which have potential to help inform MECS transitions in Nepal. So turning first to MECS research in understanding the factors driving pathways to transitioning to modern energy cooking services. So we've been working in institutional and humanitarian settings to understand how transitions to MECS might work in places like schools and refugee camps. We've been developing fuel-efficient menus in the school feeding program in Rwanda with the World Food Programme. In Lesotho, we've been testing large EPCs, so 33 litres to 65 litres, in schools to help facilitate transitions to electric cooking in academic institutions. We've also been investigating how transitions to MECS might occur in food processing, which would see increased consumption of pre-cooked food as a mechanism for enhancing modern energy cooking services. So research in this area has been conducted primarily in ASEAN countries and has focused on understanding how people learn to cook, informal food vendors, and food processing industries, usually at the small, medium enterprise level. Turning now to MECS research in technology and innovation. As you can see from the slide, this has covered a wide range of areas, from innovations in business models to technological innovations in energy storage and appliances. This includes exciting work in Malawi, the top 2 slides on the screen, where project partners Caccioni have developed a photovoltaic DC electric pressure cooking system that costs only $200. Much of this work in innovation has been carried out through the Challenge Fund competitions. Challenge Fund recipients have looked at a range of e-cook technologies, alternative fuels, and new business models. For example, in Nepal, PIDA explored the technical feasibility of electric cooking in micro-hydropower sites. This was then followed up with the Eco Challenge Fund projects that we've been hearing about today, and their focus on consumer behavior, consumer preferences, and supply chain. Valuable learning has come from all of the Challenge Fund projects to date, but their advancement depends on a combination of business commitment and the emerging context, particularly the policy enabling environment and consumer awareness. So in terms of understanding consumer preferences and how they relate to modern energy cooking services, one of the most important achievements has been developing for 8 countries electric cooking cookbooks, or e-cookbooks. Each e-cookbook provides practical tips on the use of electric stoves, but crucially, each book captures the unique opportunities for transitioning to modern energy cooking in each country context. For example, the India e-cookbook focuses on the comparison of EPCs and induction stoves, highlighting the value these new appliances can offer Indian cooks looking to take the next steps in the transitions to electrifications of their kitchens. In Zambia, the cookbook reflects the strategy of reducing loading on the grid by encouraging households to move from inefficient electrical appliances to more efficient appliances and LPG. And of course, we have the Nepal e-cookbook launched today by PEDA, which raises awareness of the important health, social, and particularly cost-saving benefits of cooking on electricity compared to other fuels. Turning now to scale up, okay, which has been a core theme of this workshop and is also the primary focus for the remainder of the MECS program. Towards this objective, we've investigated different types of financing and financing strategies, completing a series of 5 reports with energy for impact on themes such as results-based financing and an overview of the entire financial landscape for clean cooking. The work has identified a lot of potential to leverage funding from the electrification sector for e-cooking. And this aligns with the increasingly central message of MECS, that integrated electrification and clean cooking planning will be much more cost effective and make the greatest gains in tackling clean cooking. Assessment and methodological, that's difficult to say, development of results-based financing for clean cooking has also been a major focus for MECS this year. The research has been influential with multilateral development banks and is not just conceptual. The research was used to base the design of the major new NEFCO RBF initiative for clean cooking, which is worth an initial 27.8 million. And this focuses on higher tier e-cooking solutions such as electric cooking. Scaling of modern energy cooking services has been further supported by MECS research into modeling. Together with the consultancy group Climate Care, MECS has developed a new methodology that simplifies the process of calculating certified emissions reductions for metered clean cooking appliances, including electric devices. The recent rise in carbon credit prices has generated strong interest from companies and projects looking to benefit from these opportunities. And MECS is working with Climate Care and ATEC Limited to pilot the use of this new certification process in Bangladesh and Cambodia using usage tracking devices. So to understand where the greatest opportunities for electric cooking to scale up are in the global south, a global market assessment or GMA for electric cooking has been conducted by MECS. The GMA has drawn on the experiences of a range of stakeholders to identify the key factors which influence the viability of electric cooking scale up and represent this as a weighted score constructed from 37 indicators. So on the screen, this is available on the MECS website. The GMA covers 130 countries in the global south and provides a score for grid, mini-grid and standalone off-grid supported electric cooking. This tool is available online, and as the image on the left shows, it allows users to change individual indicator weightings, as well as explore all the data sets used in the methodology. Detailed information from the GMA on a number of countries can also be found on fact sheets, such as the one on the right for Nepal. Nepal is identified from the GMA as the country with the second most potential for scaling up electric cooking. To further support the work on scale up, we've also been working with different companies and in-country partners to understand the factors required to establish an effective electric cooking supply chain. Working with different companies has allowed us to learn from their experiences, and we now have a much clearer picture of what needs to be in place to support supply chains. Knowledge from in-country partners is invaluable, and we've been working with team members in-country to secure data about device availability and market conditions. And we're looking to initiate conversations with retailers who could be key to unlocking supply chains, to see if we can persuade them to offer solutions more proactively and also to put in orders for more stock. Again, the eco projects that we've been hearing about today have contributed to this objective by stimulating the beginnings of a supply chain and enabling us to see how larger samples of consumers respond to sustained e-cooking use. So overall, where are we in terms of the intended outcomes of the MECS program? Well, data sets and data collection guidelines developed by program partners ESMAP are paving the way for MECS principles to be adopted in the SDG 7.1 global tracking framework. And this is something which will be achieved by the end of the program. Regarding the second outcome, there are several examples of MECS being incorporated into energy policies and planning, including, well, we've recently confirmed that MECS will be supporting the Kenya Ministry of Energy to develop a national e-cooking strategy, which we believe to be the first in Africa. While here in Nepal, findings from PEDA's TRID and Eco Challenge Fund research have been inputted into the working document for the Nepal NDC implementation plan. In particular, the advocacy of electric pressure cookers, which we've been hearing about today. Lastly, the work I've summarized today shows how the collaborations between MECS and in-country partners have already enabled a range of market-ready innovations, providing access to modern energy cooking services for consumers. The key going forward is to build on these successes and ongoing collaborations and take these innovations to scale. So I hope this short presentation has helped to give an overview of the progress of MECS so far, and also to emphasize that this progress has been built on the absolutely crucial collaborations with in-country partners. Collaborations which we see as vital to continue both here in Nepal and globally in order to inform next steps in scaling up the transition to modern energy cooking services. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Richard. Now we would like to go into a question and answer session. Before that, I would like to request the chairperson to please come here, and also Ramchandraji, तपाईं पनि यहाँ एकचोटि आएर बस्दिनुस्। अब म question answer session मा लाएँ। Clarifications, questions, you can ask, please. There's a question in internet, so I'll just speak out, and some of you may need to sort of answer. Here in Tanzania, many people perceive some food being tasteless if cooked using pressure cookers, making difficulty in advocacy for EPC. Does this myth exist among potential users in Nepal? Perhaps some of your experience you have sent as far as finding is concerned has suggested that taste is good. This myth seems to be less in Nepal, I suppose. Yes, please.
Okay, good afternoon to all of you. This is Navraj Khatiwada from Nepal Development Research Institute. My apology, I joined a bit late. So maybe my question, if you have covered in the first session, so I'm sorry for that. The question is, I think these were, I listened to some of the presentation, wonderful work, and as well as from Loughborough University in England. So the question is regarding this, specific requirement. When you talk about the gas stove or electric cooking, for example, let me give you the gas stove. So there are specific requirements, and I will tell you my experience. One time, the Home Minister said that.
Can you shorten it, please?
Okay.
Do not go into details, please.
Okay, sale roti, for example, you cook the sale roti. Okay, the regular stove doesn't work. Khole pakaune, you are talking about the rural areas. Thulo karai chahincha, त्यहाँ तपाईको खोले पकाउने, how do you do that? खसी काट्ने, for example, खसी काट्ने काममा तपाईको ठुलो पानी एकैचोटि तताउनु पर्छ. For this sort of specific requirements, do you have any provision or have you done any research? That is my point. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Other questions? Yeah, please go ahead.
Namaste, I'm Vivek Sharma, GF Small Grants Program. Supply chain को कुराहरु गर्दाखेरि हामीले अलरेडी भएको चिजलाई मात्र गर्छौं कि यो बनाउने पनि हामी अगाडि बढ्न सक्छौं भन्ने त्यो पनि एउटा क्वेशन छ हैन. जस्तै कि इलेक्ट्रिक प्रेसर कुकर हामीले यही नेपालमा किन नबनाउने हैन. सप्लाई चेनमा हामी त्योतिर पनि अब लाग्न सक्यौं भने यसले चाहिँ अझ राम्रो हुन्छ होला. यो रेकमेन्डेसन पनि नेपाल सरकारलाई हामी दिन सक्यौं भने अझ राम्रो हुन्छ. दोस्रो, हामीले इलेक्ट्रिक कुकिङ स्टोभमा त्यो इनर भाँडा जुन भित्रको पार्ट छ नि
हजुर
त्यो केबाट बनेको हुन्छ, त्यो त्यसमा के केमिकल्सहरू राखेका हुन्छ, सफा गर्न सजिलो हुन्छ, तर नन स्टिकी प्याडमा जुन केमिकल्सहरू युज गर्छन् नि त्यसले चाहिँ हाम्रो स्वास्थ्यमा नकारात्मक असर परिरहेको हुन्छ भने हाम्रो यो एउटा पनि त्यो केबाट बनेको छ र यसले के कस्तो हानि हुन सक्छ अथवा हुँदैन भन्ने त्यो पनि जानकारीमा भएको भए अझ राम्रो हुन्थ्यो।
हस्, थ्याङ्क यू।
First of all, let me congratulate each one of you for your excellent presentation. My question goes to everybody because all of you have been speaking about subsidy. And we know how the subsidy delivery mechanism works in the country. Have you tested risks when the subsidy suddenly changes to free distribution? Because that is very crucial. The government talks about subsidy. On the ground, the target is not met, it suddenly changes to free distribution. I think these are some of the risks we need to take into consideration. And the second target group is that you have talked excellently about its use, you have talked excellently about the different technologies, and you have come out with excellent outcomes. However, in the supply chain, have you considered mobilizing women as a source of distributing through market supply, mobilizing women in doing that? Because we have excellent examples from Uganda, we have excellent examples from Tanzania and Kenya. These are the countries where they have mobilized women for marketing small electric items, such as the solar lamps, the induction stoves, and I think we can start thinking of women as an agency of change in this whole project, because it is their tool, it is for them, and it is for their benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Indraji. Indira. Dr. Indira Srish. Any other questions like to ask? None? Thank you very much. Somebody wants to respond to that questions? Biraj? Right. Can you give the mic to?
Hello. Well, I am not aware of any such policies. Like I belong from India, and I have seen that there was the largest clean cooking scheme launched in India, Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana. Under that, 8 crore LPG gas connection were distributed. That was completely free. And everyone came and took it, though the usage is low. So the average consumption for this PMUY beneficiary is somewhere close to 3 cylinders per year, which is very low. So what happens that if there is no purchasing power for the fuel refilling, then it becomes challenging. So what you have sunk capital costs. So you have done a subsidy, you have done a capital subsidy, but then it gone for sunk. People are not using it. This is not the case, at least for the EPC. So for example, what our team did, from the very beginning, we had a cap of 15%. So we thought that we'll give 85% subsidy. We stick to that 85% subsidy. People can, and we had thought that we will do in a equally monthly installment. So we'll take that money for over a period of 3-4 months. But fortunately, they all came, they paid the 15% upfront. So there was a eagerness to have this device with them. Now this device is cheaper to run compared to LPG. So if government come with a subsidy for this EPC device, or let's say electric cooking device, the problem will be not same what India had faced for Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, because the cost of running EPC is very less. So it will not be a sunk capital cost, at least for Nepal. And so that's my point. Now, I hope I answer your question. No?
Thank you. Thank you. Probably
The second part I want to take, women in supply chain. See, we have Anira Jyoti ji, who is heading this Philips EPC business. So she is a woman. And then it's an expensive device. So, distributing solar lamps,
It's less expensive. People can go in that business, but then this type of business requires huge capital cost. Who will provide them financial support to run such business? That is very important. So we can say that for electric lantern and you know some panel for 350 watt panel, these businesses can be run by women. But this EPC business, or let's say electric e-cooking device business, it requires a lot of capital. So what they can be member in the supply chain, like going door to door and doing awareness raising campaign and getting some commission for it, but they cannot start their own business because of the capital cost in the rural area at least.
Thank
It's very
you,
expensive.
Ashutosh. Thank you. You want to respond? Biraj? Okay. Pooja will respond first and then
Just a quick one on
Biraj. That's it.
just a quick one on
Ah,
the
quick.
mobilizing women as service in service supply chain. As the scope of our research was not on, you know, like strengthening the market, but it was more on identifying the factors of the consumer behavior, like, you know, like how they cook, cooking practices and energy demand. However, like it was not addressed fully in our research project. However, I would like to mention here that we, like other partners, Practical Action, together with Nekion and Ajamari Bikas Foundation, is implementing the project on electric cooking. One is on electric cooking market activation, and the other is digital innovation, where we are now trying to establish women as a key market actor, bringing them in a, you know, the whole entire supply chain. So as a distributor, local distributor, and as a marketing agents. So maybe we'll have good experiences after, like, while we do this project. But since the research did not, you know, cover the scope of the research was not that, so we were not able to do this. However, we trained, like our innovators were women, and then we trained one of our innovators to do the repair of induction cooktop later. So yeah.
Biraj?
I just wanted to respond to Navraj sir's question. Actually, we did, so this is the output of the electric pressure cooker research. So the induction is a different thing. In EPC, we did the maximum temperature test, and we find out that if you want to do any roasting, then you need to have the temperature of the oil more than 240 degrees Celsius. But so in all the EPCs, we had like 6 EPCs. The temperature, I mean, like power was cut after 195, 200, 185 degrees Celsius, meaning that these are the very much safety device. So they work, there are like several sensors inside the EPC. So if there is like certainly a high temperature, then it auto cuts the power supply. That's why we cannot do any roasting. So that is my answer on that. So, and Vivek sir's question, so just like, yeah, but it's very important since we wanted to go 5.5 million households at any point. And also the, we don't know the life actually, but the company says the life of the any electric cooking equipment is around 5 to 10 years. So then, so again, people will be buying like new electric cooking stoves, meaning that always import might not be good. That's why we need to do the local manufacturing. So PIDA is doing some already designed size from the involving the students in UK. So now from the support from WWF Nepal, we are doing the assessment of the manufacturing capacity and interest of the Nepalese manufacturer, also newcomer. So in that line, we have started some work, but we also think that is very important for Nepal.
Thank you. Thank you, Biraj. We can discuss this during the meeting place. Let me just close the session now because we also are hungry. So let me just do that quickly. Thank you very much for few questions and answers. Now let me invite Mr. Ramchandra Dahal, the chairperson of Mahankal Rural Municipality, for his remarks. Adeshji, यहाँलाई request.
कार्यक्रमका अध्यक्षज्यू, यहाँ उपस्थित हुनुभएका विभिन्न तहगत संस्थागत क्षेत्रबाट प्रतिनिधित्व गर्ने सम्पूर्ण सहभागी मित्रहरू, म सबैलाई अभिवादन व्यक्त गर्न चाहन्छु, नमस्कार भन्न चाहन्छु। आज यो कार्यक्रममा महाकाल गाउँपालिका जो ललितपुरमा पर्छ तर अत्यन्त विकट क्षेत्रमा पर्छ। हामी त यही पुल तर्ने बित्तिकै ललितपुर भन्ने ठान्छौँ, तर हामी अलि सुदूर दक्षिणमा छौँ। हाम्रो गाउँपालिका पनि यो बागमती नदीले नै छोएको छ, तर हामी एकदम अन्तिम भागमा छौँ। हामी अत्यन्त विकट पहाडी भूभागमा छौँ, ललितपुर जिल्ला भए पनि। र हाम्रो गाउँपालिका 400 मिटर समुद्र सतहको 400 मिटरको हाइटदेखि लिएर 2900 मिटरसम्मको उचाइमा हाम्रो गाउँपालिका अवस्थित छ। त्यसको क्षेत्रफल 84.88 वर्ग किलोमिटर त्यो गाउँपालिकाको क्षेत्रफल रहेको छ। र हामी कहाँ जनसङ्ख्या करिब 12,000 छ र घरधुरी सङ्ख्या 23,500 छ, के 2305 छ। अब यहाँ विषय छ यो ऊर्जा, अहिले चाहिँ सफा भान्सा मैले त्यो रूपमा लिएको छु। हामी ग्रामीण परिवेशमा रहेको, हामी सहरी परिवेशभन्दा बिल्कुल भिन्न रूपमा हाम्रा त्यहाँका समुदायहरू बसोबास गर्छन्। र हामीलाई के लाग्यो भने सहरमा हामीले जे सुविधाहरू प्राप्त गरिरहेका छौँ, हामी जनताको प्रतिनिधि भएको कारणले त्यो सुविधा गाउँमा पुर्याउनु पर्छ भन्ने हामीले मान्यताका साथ यसको पृष्ठभूमि अलि अगाडिदेखि नै सुरुवात भएको थियो। म 54 सालमा पनि जनप्रतिनिधि भएको हुनाले र हाम्रो दिल्लीजी यहाँ हुनुहुन्छ, उहाँ पनि 54 सालको जनप्रतिनिधि, र हामीले एउटा अभियान सुरु गरेका थियौँ जहाँ दक्षिण ललितपुरका 19वटा गाउँपालिकामा बिजुली बत्ती बलेको थिएन 54 सालमा। र हामी त्यो 19वटा गाविसहरू, तत्कालीन गाविसहरूले विद्युतीकरणको अभियान सुरु गरेका थियौँ। र 61 सालदेखि विद्युत बल्न सुरु गर्दै थियो ललितपुर जिल्ला। र विद्युतीकरणको अभियान सँगसँगै हामीले यदि साँच्चै हाम्रो ठाउँमा पनि बिजुली बल्यो भने यो चुलो, यो भान्सालाई चाहिँ कसरी सफा गर्ने, कसरी सफा भान्सा बनाउने भन्ने हामी अभियानमा थियौँ, सोचमा थियौँ। र हामी 54-55 सालदेखि नै हामीले यो बायोग्यासलाई हामीले त्यहाँ भित्र्याएका थियौँ। र हाम्रै नेतृत्वमा त्यहाँ बायोग्यास बनाउन, प्रशस्त बायोग्यासहरू बनाउन हामीले सुरुवात गरेका थियौँ। तर त्यो बायोग्यासले पूर्ण हुँदो रहेनछ, भान्सालाई चाहिने जति पूर्ण हुँदो रहेनछ। र अलि लागत कस्ट पनि अत्यन्त धेरै लाग्ने, र पछि चाहिँ त्यसको गाईबस्तु पाल्ने ठाउँ भएको भएर गोबरले मात्रै खपत हुने र अर्को खर्च गर्नु चाहिँ नपर्ने, फेरि त्यसको मर्मत गर्ने कुरामा चाहिँ अत्यन्तै खर्चिलो हुने, अलिक गाह्रो अप्ठ्यारो हुने भएकोले बिस्तारै यो 72 को भूकम्प पछाडि बायोग्यासमा मान्छेहरूको इन्ट्रेस्ट बिस्तारै सेलाउँदै गयो। धेरै बायोग्यासहरू त्यतिखेर भूकम्पले बिग्रियो पनि, र हामी त्यो मार्फत हामी सफा चुलो के भान्सामा चाहिँ हामी जब प्रवेश गर्न सुरुवात गरेका थियौँ। त्यो धेरै सक्सेस भएन, त्यो धेरै सफलता हामीले प्राप्त गर्न सकेनौँ। त्यस पछाडि यो आधुनिक चुलो, दाउरे बाल्ने हो आधुनिक चुलाको पनि हामीले अत्यन्त धेरै प्रचलनमा ल्यायौँ। त्यो पनि त्यति धेरै सफल, त्यो धुवाँबाट मुक्त हुन हामी सकेनौँ। र यो भर्खरै हाम्रो गाउँपालिकामा सबै घरधुरीमा विद्युतीकरण भइसके पछाडि, बत्ती बल्न सुरु भइसके पछाडि अब यसलाई कसरी जाने, अब यो बिजुलीलाई चाहिँ खपत गर्नुपर्छ र अब बिजुली मार्फत भान्सालाई चाहिँ अलि सुलभ बनाउनुपर्छ भन्ने हामीले अलि लामो छलफल गऱ्यौँ। र यो छलफललाई हाम्रो सहजीकरण चाहिँ हाम्रो दिल्लीजीले गर्नुभयो। यो अलिकति यतातिर हामीलाई अनुदान दिने दात्री संस्थाहरूसँग जोड दिने काम चाहिँ हाम्रो दिल्लीजीले पनि गर्नुभयो। हामी त्यो खोजीमा थियौँ, उहाँले हाम्रो चाहिँ मिडिएटरको रूपमा पनि काम गर्नुभयो र त्यही सन्दर्भमा हाम्रो बिराजीहरू यो पीडाको संस्था बिराजीसँग हाम्रो अलिक पुरानो दोस्ती पनि थियो र उहाँ बिराजीसँग पनि जोडियो र उहाँहरूले करिब 6 महिना जति त्यसको एउटा मूल्याङ्कन गरिदिनु भयो त्यहाँ चाहिँ। र त्यो 130 वटा हामीले यो इलेक्ट्रिक कुकर चाहिँ हाम्रो गाउँमा बिराजीहरू मार्फत अनुदानमा हामीले त्यहाँ चाहिँ प्राप्त गरेका पनि छौँ। र अनि यो चुलोको बारेमा इन्डक्सन चुलोको बारेमा चाहिँ एपिसीसँग हाम्रो कुराकानी भयो र हामीले गाउँपालिकाले 40% र एपिसीले चाहिँ 60% गरेर हामीलाई 2200 चुलो चाहिँ हामीले प्राप्त गर्न सफल भयौँ र हामीले 2200 घरमा हामी त्यो चुलोहरू वितरण गरेका छौँ र त्यो 130 गरेर हाम्रो सम्पूर्ण घरमा यो इलेक्ट्रिक चुलो चाहिँ हाम्रो पुगेको छ। यसका हामीलाई किन प्रेरणा गरौँ भने बिजुली त बल्यो नि, बलिसकेपछि हामीले तल धुवाँ बालेका आगो बालेका छौँ, पुरा चाहिँ धुवाँ भएको छ, त्यसले चाहिँ धुइँसो त्यस्तै लागेको छ, धुवाँले त्यतिकै प्रदूषण भएको छ र एकदम भान्सा चाहिँ कहिले पनि चाहेर पनि सफा गर्न नसक्ने स्थिति आएपछि हामी योबाट त प्रेरित भएर हामीले यो इलेक्ट्रिक चुलोको खोजीमा गयौँ। अर्को ग्यास हाम्रो प्रत्येक घरमा पुगेको छ, यो एलपी ग्यास हाम्रो प्रत्येक घरमा पुगेको छ, तर त्यसले असाध्यै धेरै कठिन छ। प्रत्येक घरमा त बाटो पुगेको छैन, टोलसम्म पुगेको छ, टोलबाट उही डोकामा बोकेर चाहिँ ग्यास लानु पर्ने, ओसार्नु ल्याउनु पर्ने, अनि त्यहाँ ग्यासको बजार नभएको कारणले भन्ने बित्तिकै सिद्धिने बित्तिकै ग्यासको चाहिँ सर्टेज हुने, अभाव हुने, खरिद गर्न नपाइने र त्यो अत्यन्त अलि मूल्यमा पनि कस्टली पनि छ। गाउँमा हामी बसोबास गर्ने मान्छेहरूलाई कस्टली पनि छ, त्यो एकदम महँगो पनि छ र ग्यासको अर्को पनि खतरा पनि छ। ग्यास बाल्ने कुरो हुन त इलेक्ट्रिक पनि खतरा छ, चलाउन जानेन भने, तर इलेक्ट्रिक भन्दा पनि ग्यास चाहिँ खतरा छ भन्ने हामीले त्यो कुरो बुझेका छौँ र यसरी हामीले यो चुलोको अभियानलाई, इलेक्ट्रिक चुलोको अभियानलाई आयौँ। तर हामीले चुलो वितरण त गरिसक्यौँ, यसका केही चुनौतीहरू पनि छन्। चुलो वितरण गरेपछि पूर्ण रूपमा सम्पन्न भयो त, पुरै जनताहरूले सुरु गरे त त्यसबाट चाहिँ पुरै हुन्छ त भन्ने कुरो। हामी ग्रामीण परिवेशमा छौँ, अनि यहाँ सरले खोले पकाउने कुरो र खसी काट्दाखेरि पानी तताउने कुरो पनि यहाँ उठाउनु भयो जस्तो लाग्यो मलाई। हामी भात मात्रै खाँदैनौँ, हामी ढिँडो पनि खान्छौँ। गाउँमा ढिँडो पनि खाने चलन छ, तर यो इलेक्ट्रिक चुलोले ढिँडो पकाउन मिल्दैन। यो ढिँडो पकाउने भाँडै छैन इलेक्ट्रिकको, यो इलेक्ट्रिक चुलोमा। त्यसमाथि त्यो चुलोमा त टक्क राखेर त्यो ढिँडो पकाउन सकिँदैन, त्यसो आगो बाल्न जरुरी छ। हामी रोटी पकाउँछौँ, यहाँ रोटी भन्ने बित्तिकै हामी आटोको रोटी बुझ्छौँ, तर हामी कहाँ रोटी भन्ने बित्तिकै त्यो मकैको रोटी के त्यो बाक्लो त्यो रोटी पकाउँछौँ, त्यो भुग्रोमै सेकाउनु पर्छ, आगोको भुग्रोमै सेकाउनु पर्छ, त्यस कारण रोटी पाक्दैन हामी। अर्को कुरो, हामी 15-20 जना कहिलेकाहीँ भयौँ, गेस्टहरू आयो भने त्यो ठुलो भाँडो बसाल्न मिल्दैन फेरि, होइन? यसको विकल्प चाहिँ हामीले अहिले देखिरहेका छैनौँ। होइन, सरले खोले पकाउने भन्नुभयो, साँच्चै सरकारले चाह्यो भने यसको विकल्प छ, सोलर सिस्टम। गाईबस्तुलाई वास्तवमा त्यो पकाइरहनु पर्दैन कि उसलाई दिने दाना, तर तातो पानीको अनिवार्यता हुन्छ। सोलरले हामीले राम्रो विकास गर्न सक्यौँ फेरि अर्को एउटा सोल्युसन हो, हामीले आगो बाल्नै पर्दैन अरू कुरोमा। यो एउटा दुईटा फ्याक्टरभन्दा बाहेक आगो नबाल्न पनि हुन्छ। त्यो साँच्चै खसी फुइल्याउन पनि त्यो सोलरबाट पानी तात्न सक्छ, होइन? यसको विकल्प अब यसलाई मान्छेको जीवनशैलीलाई सहज बनाउनको निमित्त थोरै समयमा धेरै काम गर्न सक्ने बनाउनको निमित्त तलबाट कुरो उठाउनेहरूले भन्दा तल उपयोग गर्ने मान्छेहरूले भन्दा मञ्चमा आएर अतिथि बनेर भाषण गर्नेहरूले बढी ध्यान दिनुपर्छ यो मुलुकमा भन्ने लाग्छ मलाई। अलि बढी ध्यान दिनुपर्छ र यसका अनेकौं विकल्पहरू छन्। र अर्को कुरो हामीले यत्तिकै बुझ्नुपर्छ फेरि अब हामीले इलेक्ट्रिक चुलो त भयो अब किनभने दाल भात तरकारी मासु माछा सबै त्यसमा पाक्छ। त्यसमा अहिले बढी यही खाने भान्सामा यही बढी चाहिँ चल्छ र आम रूपमा त्यो भइसके पछाडि अब कहिलेकाहीँ के हुन्छ भने हामी जब स्विच खाना कतिखेर खोज्छौँ भन्दा जब भोक लाग्छ नि, भोक कुनै पनि बेला लाग्न सक्छ। दिउँसोको 4 बजे पनि भोक लाग्न सक्छ, बिहानको 8 बजे पनि भोक लाग्न सक्छ। हाम्रो गाउँघरको खाना खाने भनेको 9 बजेदेखि 10 बजे 11 बजे पनि हो र बेलुका चाहिँ 6 बजे पछाडि हो। तर त्यो बेलामा स्विच दबाउँदाखेरि लाइन नआउन सक्छ नि, यसको म्यानेज कसरी गर्ने? त्यसकारण भरपर्दो विद्युतको चाहिँ विद्युत वितरणको प्रणालीलाई चाहिँ सिस्टमलाई अलिक विकास गर्न चाहिँ जरुरी छ। अहिले हामीलाई के समस्या खड्किएको छ? हामी यहाँ लगन खेलबाट बत्ती छोड्दाखेरि हामी कहाँ भोल्टेजको समस्या छ, ट्रान्समिटरमा पावरको समस्या छ, अनि जनताले बालेको घरमा त्यो मिटरको समस्या छ, त्यसलाई चाहिँ पावर अपग्रेडिङ गर्नुपर्ने समस्याहरू छ। बेला बेलामा हुरी बतास आउँछ, मर्मतका समस्याहरू छन्। र अलरेडी 24 घण्टा कुनै पनि बेला मान्छेले खाना पकाउन खोज्दाखेरि बिजुलीको व्यवस्थापनमा चाहिँ ध्यान दिन जरुरी छ। हामी त्यतिखेर मात्रै सफल हुन्छौँ भन्ने मलाई लाग्छ। अर्को उपभोक्ता शिक्षा दिन जरुरी छ। हामीलाई दाउरा सबभन्दा महँगो हुँदो रहेछ खाना बनाउने भन्ने कुरो हाम्रो रिपोर्टले देखिएको छ। हामी त्यहाँका मान्छे के हिसाब गर्दैन भने दाउरा त जङ्गलमा पाइन्छ, बिहानदेखि बेलुकासम्म दाउरा खोजेर ल्यायो, मजाले जति पनि हालिन्छ जति पनि बालिन्छ त्यसको मूल्यमा कन्भर्ट हुँदैन। तर उसको श्रमलाई कन्भर्ट गर्ने हो भने सबभन्दा महँगो दाउरा पर्छ। यो कुरो बुझाउन जरुरी छ उपभोक्तालाई, हैन? यो कुरो बुझाउन जरुरी छ। त्यसकारण यो इलेक्ट्रिकबाट हुने हाम्रो फाइदा, यसको स्वास्थ्यमा के फाइदा हुन्छ, वातावरणमा के फाइदा हुन्छ, समयको बचत हामीलाई कसरी हुन्छ, यी कुराहरू उपभोक्ता शिक्षा दिन जरुरी छ। र म के आग्रह गर्न चाहन्छु भने स्थानीय तहसँग हामी यत्र ऊर्जा क्षेत्रमा काम गर्ने संस्थाहरू छौँ, त्यो तहमा पुग्नुपर्छ। अनि मात्र हामी स्रोत र साधन हुँदाखेरि त्यसको चाहिँ सही सदुपयोग गर्न सक्छौँ भन्ने कुरा मैले यति कुराहरू राखेँ। आज मलाई यहाँ यसरी उपस्थित हुने जुन अवसर दिनुभयो, आयोजक संस्थाहरूलाई हार्दिक धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु। धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद अध्यक्षज्यू। अब म यो सेसनको पहिलो सेसनको अन्तिममा आइपुग्यौँ हामी। त्यसपछि अफकोर्स लन्च खान जान्छौँ। So I'd like to invite the chairperson of this workshop, Honorable Professor Dr. Surendra Labkarna, the member of National Planning Commission, for his closing remarks.
Thank you, Mohan sir. आदरणीय महाकाल गाउँपालिकाका अध्यक्षज्यू, आयोजकज्यूहरू एवं स्टडीमा संलग्न विभिन्न विद्वानजीहरू, विभिन्न संस्थाबाट पाल्नुभएका महानुभावजीहरू एवं पत्रकारजीहरू एवं अन्य महानुभाव महिला तथा सज्जनवृन्द, मैले धेरै कुरा बोल्नु छैन, थोरैमा कुरो राख्न चाहन्छु। समय पनि धेरै गइसकेको छ, धेरै कुरा आइसकेको छ। स्टडीका जति पनि 5 वटा स्टडी र एउटा डक्टर रिचार्ड राख्नु MECS सम्बन्धी कुराहरू सबैले एउटै कुरातिर इङ्गित गरिरहेछ कि हाम्रो ट्रान्सफर्मेसनको आवश्यकता छ। यसमा कहीँ शङ्का छैन। सबैले विद्युतीय प्रयोग आवश्यक छ। त्यसैले तपाईहरुले सुरुमै एउटा नेपाल कुक बुकको जुन लन्च गर्ने काम गर्नुभयो, यो ठुलो काम छ। हेर्दाखेरि यो बुकलेट जस्तो सानो जस्तो तर ठुलो काम छ। मान्छेले के छ भने अब यो एक किसिमको बाध्यात्मक अवस्था के छ भने हामीले ट्रान्सफर त हुनु छ, डर्टी इनर्जीबाट क्लिन एनर्जीमा जानुपर्ने स्थिति छ। इभन कि एलपीजी ग्यासलाई छोडेर पनि हामीले कुकमा जानुपर्ने अवस्था छ। तर कुक गर्दाखेरि के प्रयोग गर्ने एउटा क्वेसन मार्क तपाईँ हाम्रो सबैको दिमागमा हुन सक्छ। जो स्टडीमा यहाँ अथवा पुस्तकको प्रकाशनमा लाग्नु भएको छ उहाँहरू त क्लियर हुनुहुन्छ। तर यो बाहेक यही सेक्टरमा लाग्नेलाई पनि अब के लिउँ त, इन्डक्सन लिउँ कि इन्फ्रावाला लिउँ कि इपिसी लिउँ कि के गर्दाखेरि राम्रो होला। यो किताबमा सानो भए पनि एउटा स्टडी तपाईहरुले गर्नुभयो, बताइदिनु भयो यसको कस्ट यति छ, यो यहाँ उपलब्ध छ, यसमा यो हुन सक्छ भनेर जुन स्पष्टीकरण दिएको छ त्यो एकदम महत्त्वपूर्ण मलाई लाग्यो। त्यसैले अत्यधिक बधाईको पात्र यस संस्था, यो जुन संस्थाले 3वटा संस्थामा हेरिरहेको छु, UK एड, MECS, पेडा, सबैलाई मेरो तर्फबाट धेरै धेरै धन्यवाद, बधाईको पात्र हुनुहुन्छ तपाईहरु। यसलाई अझ बढी प्रचार प्रसारमा कसरी लग्न सकिन्छ यो महत्त्वपूर्ण एस्पेक्ट पनि छ। किनभने अहिले हामी ट्रान्जिसनको फेजमा छौं, त्यसमा त कुनै शङ्का छैन। अब ट्रान्जिसनलाई कसरी हामी पार कसरी गर्ने, स्टेपिङ के हुन सक्छ, हाम्रो केही पोलिसी हुन सक्छ, केही एक्टिभिटिज हुन सक्छ, विज्ञापन हुन सक्छ, प्रचार प्रसार हुन सक्छ, के स्टेपबाट हामी पार गर्ने हो, त्यो हामी तपाईँ सबैको लागि एउटा चुनौतीपूर्ण अवस्थामा हेरिरहेको छु। त्यो मिलेर गरौँ र जति पनि आज प्रेजेन्टेसनहरू भए ती प्रेजेन्टेसनबाट आएका जुन कन्क्लुजनहरू छन् त्यसले के सङ्केत गरिरहेछ, यो सङ्केत के भइरहेछ भने आज यो इन्ड होइन, यो प्रारम्भ हो। प्रारम्भ के को लागि भने कहाँ पोलिसी इन्टरभेन्सन गर्न सकिन्छ। यदि यस्तो एउटा सानो फ्रेमवर्क यसैबाट तपाईहरुको छलफलबाट आयो अथवा भोलि पर्सि बसेर छलफल गरेर ल्याउनु हो भने पोलिसी लेभलमा त्यसलाई एडभोकेसी गरेर हामी पोलिसी लेभलमा लिएर जान सक्छौँ। मलाई खुसी लाग्छ यही उसमा धेरैचोटि मसँग बारम्बार मोहन सर नै हुनुभयो, मोहनदास आनन्दजी, पुरुषोत्तम घिम्रेजी अथवा दिल्लीजी यही हुनुहुन्छ, उहाँहरू बारम्बार घचकिचाउनुहुन्छ, सर यसमा केही गर्नु पर्यो, यसमा यो गरौँ त्यो गरौँ बारम्बार भनिराख्नुहुन्छ। मलाई धेरै आजको दिनमा उहाँहरूलाई पनि बधाई दिन पनि इच्छा भयो र तपाईँहरूलाई धेरै धेरै बधाई पनि छ र यस्तै सक्रियता राख्नुहोला भन्ने पनि आशा पनि छ। अब धेरै क्वेसनको फर्ममा जति पनि क्वेसनहरू आयो त्यो एकदम रेलिभेन्ट क्वेसन छ। नवराज खतिवड़ाजी जुन भन्नुभयो कि ठुलो भाँडोको प्रयोग कसरी गर्ने, भोज भतेरमा कसरी प्रयोग गर्ने, त्यसको के विकल्प छ कि छैन, त्यत्तिकै महत्त्वपूर्ण छ जति महत्त्वपूर्ण क्वेसन विवेक शर्माजीबाट आयो कि नेपालमै बनाउने कि नबनाउने। कति बेरसम्म बाहिरबाट आयात हामीले गर्ने, त्यत्तिकै आयातबाट हामी ग्रसित भइसकेका छौँ। हाम्रो इकोनोमी कहाँ छ, हामी कुन प्रेसरमा छौँ भन्ने कुरा त जगजाहेर छ, भनिराख्नु पर्दैन। नेपालमै कमसेकम बनाउने प्रयास गरौँ, त्यो एकदम महत्त्वपूर्ण क्वेसन छ। भाइटल क्वेसन आयो। डक्टर इन्दिरा श्रेष्ठजीले पनि सब्सिडी कुरो उठाउनु हो र मोबिलाइजेसन अफ वुमेनको कुरो हो। यो जति पनि कुरो यहाँहरूले उठाइराख्नु भएको छ त्यसमा वास्तवमा यो क्वेसनहरू त्यत्तिकै महत्त्वपूर्ण छ। यो कुरो भनिराख्दाखेरि खास गरेर जुन ट्रान्सफर्मेसन कुरो गरिरहेको छु त्यो कुरो गरिराख्दाखेरि महिलाको पर्सपेक्टिभबाट क्वेसन उठाएको छ, तपाईँहरूले जवाब पनि दिनुभएको छ, त्यो ज्यादै महत्त्वपूर्ण छ। म त आफ्नो आमालाई सम्झिन्छु, हजुरआमालाई सम्झिन्छु। आजभोलि अहिले त संसारमा हुनुहुन्न, तर उहाँको आँखा, उहाँको हातमा लागेको फोहोर, किचनको फोहोर हेर्दाखेरि के लाग्छ भने आज जुन अवस्थामा हामी कुरो गरिरहेछौँ यदि त्यो भएको भए मेरो आमाको आँखा कुसमयमा जुन बर्बाद हो सम्भव त हुने थिएन। हजुरआमा बनाइराख्नु भएको थियो खाना, जति बेला पनि आँखाबाट आँसु चुहिने, हातमा फोहोर छ, लुगामा फोहोर छ, त्यो के थियो भने त्यो अवस्थाबाट हामी उम्किने अवस्था अहिलेको स्टडीहरूले देखायो कि त्यहाँबाट ज्यादै माइक्रो लेभलमा कुरा गर्दा पनि व्यवस्था छ। अब यहाँ चुनौती कहाँ छ भने कि अहिले इलेक्ट्रिसिटीको हामीले कुरो गर्दाखेरि विद्युतको पहुँचको कुरो गर्दाखेरि अब 93% सम्म त विद्युत पुग्यो, 7% मा अहिले पनि बाँकी छ, पुग्न बाँकी छ। यहाँ चुनौती यहाँ पनि छ। कहाँ बाँकी छ? विकटता जहाँ छ। कर्णाली प्रदेशमा सबभन्दा बढी अहिले बाँकी रहेछ। विकटता पनि त्यहाँ छ, गरिबी त्यहाँ छ र त्यहाँ कसरी हामी रेगुलेट कसरी गर्ने, कसरी उत्पादन गर्ने। अहिले त हामीलाई थाहा छैन त विद्युतको उत्पादनमा सिजनल हामी धनी र सिजनल गरिब हुने गरेका छौँ। कुनै महिनामा बढी छ, कुनै महिनामा कम छ। त्यहाँ एउटा प्रब्लम छ। अर्को प्रब्लम यहाँहरूले पनि उठाउनु हो। अर्को प्रब्लम के छ भने अब यो कन्टिन्युटीको प्रब्लम छ। 24 घण्टा आउँछ कि आउँदैन। यदि हामीले विद्युतको प्रयोगमा जाने हो भने, सारा कुरो जाने हो भने त्यहाँ अलिकति रेगुलेटरीको प्रश्न छ। बनाउँदा पकाउँदै गइहाल्छ विद्युत र त्यहाँ मान्छेको रिलायबिलिटीको क्वेसन छ, विश्वसनीयताको प्रश्न छ। कसरी यसैमा निर्भर जाँदाखेरि ट्रान्सफर हुँदाखेरि त्यहाँ के होला? त्यहाँ एप्लायन्सेसको समस्या, तारको समस्या छ, बाक्लो तार हुनु पर्यो। भोल्टेजको समस्या छ, काठमाडौँमै भोल्टेजको समस्या छ। धेरै एरियामा भोल्टेज पुगिरहेको हुँदैन, माइक्रोवेभ छ चल्दैन। धेरै एरियामा त्यो समस्या छ। चुनौतीहरू छन्, तर चुनौती भएन भने अवसर पनि आउँदैन। त्यसले यसलाई समाधान NEA को माध्यमबाट कसरी समाधान गर्ने, त्यसले भन्छु यो पोलिसी इन्टरभेन्सनको पनि कुरा छ। अझ बढी जोड लगाउनु पर्ने कुरा छ। माइक्रो लेभलको यो कुरो छ भने मैक्रो लेभलमा आउँदाखेरि अहिले तपाईहरु सुन्नुभएको होला आयल निगमको अवस्था, आयल निगमले सरकारले बुझाएको पत्र सब सार्वजनिक भइसकेको छ। अब पैसा छैन है, हात उठाइसक्यो। अब त चाहेर नचाहेर LPG को विकल्पमा जानुपर्ने बाध्यात्मक अवस्था छ। पहिला त अलिकता रहरको अवस्था थियो, जति बेला कालो कालो भइरहेको थियो, जोसँग पैसा थियो मान्छेले अलिकता LPG ग्यासमा गयो, घर घरमा ग्यास भइहाल्यो। जहाँ जहाँ सम्भव थियो भन्नुस्, शहरी इलाका भन्नुस् न, खास गरेर त्यहाँ गइहाल्यो, धेरै ग्रामीण इलाकामा गइहाल्यो। तर अब त रहरको कुरो छैन, राष्ट्रिय बाध्यात्मक अवस्था छ। राष्ट्रको अवस्था ज्यादै चिन्ताजनक अवस्थामा हामी छौँ। त्यति बेला त बाध्यात्मक अवस्था आइसक्यो। अब त्यो स्थितिमा तपाईहरुले जुन आयोजना गर्नु हो यो ज्यादै सान्दर्भिक छ, एकदम टाइमली आयोजना गरिदिनु हो। अब तपाई हामी सबैजना मिलेर अलिकता जोड लगायो भने, यसलाई नयाँ पोलिसी किसिमबाट गयो भने मलाई लाग्छ। अस्ति नै पनि अन्तर्क्रियामा हामी धेरैचोटि यस्तो अन्तर्क्रियामा अस्ति नै पनि अन्तर्क्रिया भयो, आयल निगमका साथीहरू भनिराख्नु भएको थियो एटलिस्ट तुरन्तै कमसेकम 4-5% पनि घटाइदिनुहोस् LPG को डिपेन्डेन्सी, अलि राहत हुन्छ हामीलाई। त्यसैले म भनिरहेको छु यो एकदम टाइमली यहाँहरूले जुन आयोजना गरिदिनु हो, जुन बाध्यात्मक स्थितिबाट कसरी निकास हुने एउटा विकल्प आयो नि त, थुप्रै विकल्पहरू आयो। यसलाई बिस्तारै ट्रान्सफर गर्दै जाने र त्यसको ज्वलन्त इक्जाम्पल तपाईहरुले स्टडी गरेर दिनु हो र हाम्रो महाकाल गाउँपालिकाको अध्यक्षज्यूले व्यावहारिक रूपमा प्रयोग गरेर देखाइदिनु हो। यही बेलासम्म भनिरहेको छु, उहाँ आफै पनि नेता पनि हो, उहाँ एउटा गाउँपालिकाको र गरेर देखाइदिनु हो। उहाँको मेसेज राष्ट्रभरि गयो भने, इलेक्सनको बेला छ, इलेक्सनको एउटा एजेन्डा भइदियो भने गाउँपालिका लेभलमा हैन, हरेक गाउँमा उहाँले मेसेज उहाँबाट जाओस् र एजेन्डा बन्यो। गाउँ गाउँमा कमसेकम एजेन्डा, पालिका पालिकामा एजेन्डा बनिहाल्यो भने, शहरी इलाकामा भए पनि हरेक पालिकामा, गाउँपालिका नगरपालिकामा एजेन्डाको रूपमा गइदियो भने हैन अब यो LPG ग्यासलाई हामी छोड्नै पर्छ र सस्तो हुन्छ त्यो देखाइदिनु पर्यो। कमसेकम उहाँको मेसेजबाट अथवा उहाँलाई उपयोग गरेर कसरी हुन्छ यसलाई यसरी लिएर जाउँ र एजेन्डा यदि बन्न सक्यो भने, अहिले एजेन्डा छ, हरेकको एजेन्डा बन्ने सिचुएसन छ हैन। यही महिना नेक्स्ट मन्थमा त इलेक्सन हुनेवाला छ। एजेन्डाको रूपमा केही पालिकाहरूमा आइदियो भने, म 100% भन्दैन तर केहीमा अवश्य आउन सक्छ। तपाईँ हाम्रो प्रयासबाट एजेन्डा यदि बनिदियो भने ग्रेट। जुन 4% 5% को हामी कुरो गरिरहेका छौँ टार्गेट, 10% 15% सम्म यो पुरा हुन सक्छ। यो एकदम नजिक छ, टार्गेटको नजिक भन्नुस् न, तपाईँ हामी नजिकमा छौँ। त्यसले एकदम